good to be here sharing with you all. I'd like you all to read this together.
Okay. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made by salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled under the foot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under their bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven.
So for most of the human history, salt has become a very prized commodity. By that, I mean, it become very precious. Long time ago, salt is very, very precious and very expensive also. Why? Because it was, in those days, the lack of technology, okay, it proved very difficult to harvest. Okay? Now this kind, the salt that you see here, you only know salt as white color, right? But actually, the real salt that you harvest from whether it's from the sea, some part of the sea, or from the hills, or in the cave, they actually are surrounded by minerals. So that's why, and many minerals, at least 16 minerals or more. So these are the real ones. And so they are not white. Okay? So by a long time, so Jesus says we are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. We'll talk about that later. And Jesus said, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket or under a bowl, but on a stand and gives light to all in the house. This is a different version. Next one. So for a long time, salt has been a prized commodity. It's very expensive because it's very difficult to harvest. But we really salt mine is like going to dig minerals in the ground. So yeah, we will sometimes go dig the huge long tunnel all the way down, many feet, more than 10 feet down, and then they use the tools to drill it. Okay, so it's very difficult to harvest, and so it was very, it's not so easily available. It's scarce, and also difficult to transport them. Okay, and this inflated the cost. Salt today is really inexpensive, right? Because it's actually altered. It's refined salt. That's why it's so white. It's not the real salt. The real salt kind of expensive. You go to a restaurant, some fancy restaurants, they serve you real salt. Yeah. Okay. So Egyptians were among the first to discover salt's culinary potential. What they did is they took salt from the Delta River and let the water to evaporate, leaving behind only the white shining ones, the white little granulars. And then what did they do with the salt? They applied on the fish or on the meat. Right? In this way, they stumbled accidentally the salt's ability to deter bacterial growth. That means it is a preservation. Salt preserves, right? Some of you would know that. Okay, so it's for curing. So you have like salted fish lah. Okay, when I went to Portugal, they have this dish called bacalhau, and that is cod fish, but cod is not from the region in Portugal. It's from some other European countries. So when they got the the cod fish, how do? They preserve it with lots of salt. So that's how it became a dish, makara, but but it's very, very salty. Yeah. So this is before the invention of refrigeration. They had to use salt to preserve the food. And salt became so popular. Okay, the next slide. Yeah. Okay, salt became very popular then. And after that, the trade of salt increases, wealth. Those who trade salt became wealthy salt merchants. And the Romans, they began to build the salt road to overcome the difficulties in transportation. So wherever Rome conquered, every country, every city they conquer, they slowly build a road there. So there's civilization, okay? Cities will develop as a result of the salt trade. And so, therefore, the Romans view salt as vital as expanding their empire. Okay? And this is a very interesting fact that I didn't know until I studied this. You know, in those days when the Roman soldiers went to war, they sweat a lot on the battlefield and resulting in salt deprivation. That means they are depleted of salt. And when our body actually needs salt also. We cannot have totally no salt. Now we have too much salt, so we have to reduce salt. We take a little bit of salt only. But we still need salt. Because if you don't have salt in your body, this is what happens. It results with the soldier, they were confused, they have seizures, even brain damage. And therefore, after that, when they lost the battle, they say, oh, we must feed our soldiers with salt. So salt is vital to health. So therefore, the expression came about, to be worth one's salt. Have you heard? You are worth your salt. Maybe I don't know, maybe nowadays people don't say that. But it means you're competent and you deserve what you're owning. And that has its roots in the soldiers, in the Roman soldiers' time. Because sometimes the pay for the Roman soldiers include salt. They don't pay them sometimes money, but they pay them salt also. Yeah, because salt is important. They use it for their food. They use it, for themselves. Okay. So that's where the word salary comes about, from the Latin word salarium. Okay, it refers to a soldier's allowance to buy salt. Okay, and then we have other words like salad. It means vegetable seasoned with salt, and your sausage, all coming from that root word, Latin root word sal. Okay, they are all seasoned with salt. But after the fall of the Roman Empire, salt continued to play a very important role in the military. Thousands of Napoleon soldiers died from wounds because they failed to heal. One of the causes of that is because the soldiers suffered from a lack of salt. See? Because we perspire a lot, that's why when we do sports, right, then after that, they tell you to drink glyceride or whatever. Because you need to replenish salt. After you perspire, you need to have some salt intake, right? Because your body needs that. Okay. And one of the causes of the French Revolution was because of the cost of salt. It was so expensive, it's like the cost of a bread. And therefore, it led to the French ordinary common people revolting against the government. Okay? And in the latest one, in 1930, Mahatma Gandhi led a 200-mile pilgrimage to collect untaxed salt for the poor of India. Because when salt was so expensive, the poor people can't even afford salt. Okay? So let's look at it. I give you a history of the salt, and now we look at the salt in the Bible. The first mention of salt, can anybody tell me where can we find the first mention of salt in the Bible? If you know your Bible. Way back in Genesis, first mention of salt. It's in Genesis that I forgot which chapter that was, but the one when God Do you hear of Sodom and Gomorrah? The city, right? That Lot, Abraham's nephew, lived in. They were very sinful. Okay? Why were they sinful? What was the sin that God had to destroy that city? Huh? They have excessive indulgence in sex and they neglect the poor. They homosexual actually started. It was there, not that started, it was there. Okay, and they indulged in that. And so Abraham bargained with God, say, if you can find 50 righteous people, will you please spare the city? And God said, okay. Then he bargained to 40, then he bargained to 30, and 20, and then 10. And he stopped because he cannot bargain anymore. Because why? His nephew Lot lives right there in that city. And he pleaded with God not to destroy the city. Because God says, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah because they are really excessive in their sin. And God says, enough is enough, I'm going to destroy them. But for the sake of Abraham, God says, I will spare if I can find 10 righteous men, people in that city. But in the end, there was not even one righteous man. But God took Lot and his family out. Okay, the angel came and tell them to run because God is going to destroy the city. So he took his wife, his 2 daughters, Lot himself. So two angels came held their hands and ran out the city before God destroyed. But Lot's wife, what happened? Look at the picture there, can you see? I think it's maybe battery. Okay, it's the angel's instruction, don't look back. But she turned and looked at the city that was being destroyed. And she became, the Bible tells us that she became a pillar of salt right away. Okay, right then and then, because she didn't follow.